Welcome to the Parks, Arts, Education, and Equality Subcommittee. Today is September 27th, 2017. I am joined by my colleagues, Councilman Nowakowski and Councilman DeCiccio is on the phone, and we will begin our meeting. I have called to the public and Jerry Van Gass. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Pastor and the rest of the members. Boy, it's been 4 months since we've been here, and I thought I'd have a little more to update you on in regards to excess parks properties being sold to repay the 3PI debt for Gulf Fund. Unfortunately, we haven't really moved anywhere since your vote, the council's vote on July 6th. And it's taken constant prodding to even get an update from the Parks Department, Judy Weiss, as to where this process stands. It took almost a year to get it out there on an RFP, the 6-acre parcel at Rosemofford Park, between the survey and the appraisal, which should have been a very simple process. Finally, what was posted with the expiration date, the bid date of August 17th. With all that work, all that time expended, there were no bids. There was nothing. They weren't ready to go immediately to a sale by broker, which we've been pushing for all along. Now they have to come back to the council, apparently, to have a broker approved at your October 18th meeting. This sounds, this sounds like the proverbial cart in front of the horse. You've got the property, and yet you have no broker to sell it. And if it weren't for our constant prodding, they have not been forthcoming with any information. They've punted it over to the real estate department. And I did get one email, which is very upsetting, from Judy Weiss, saying this is from after there were no bids for the RFP. Jerry, I know you have been interested in this issue. We received no response to the RFP. Our next step is a direct sale through the city broker. I will keep you in the loop. Well, if the loop is silence, that's what we've gotten. And interested in this subject, we've been here for 3 or 4 years. I think she knows that. So I expect a little more from that office. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I did receive your letter yesterday, and I believe you probably have the letter from Ed Zucker. Okay, so just wanted to make sure you had it in your hands. I did receive it, received your letter yesterday, and then I received a response late last night, about 5:30. So, thank you. I have no cards, any other cards for a call to the public. I need somebody to make a motion for the minutes of the meeting.
Make a motion to approve the meeting of June 28th.
Second.
I have a first and I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have consent actions, items 2 through 4. Is there anybody wanting to pull anything from the consent items?
Motion to approve items 2 through 4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I also hear Councilman Valenzuela on the line. Welcome.
Thanks, Vice Mayor.
Information only is items 5 through 9. Are there any items on the agenda 5 through 9 that we would like to pull? Nope. Okay. We are moving to item 10 has been continued to October 25th meeting. So that has been continued. Item 11, I have a conflict with, so Councilman Nowakowski, could you lead item number 11?
Absolutely. We have our Parks Director and Mario here to give a presentation.
Good morning, members of the subcommittee. I'm Mario Paniagua, Deputy City Manager with the City Manager's Office, and joining me here at the table is Inger Erickson, our Parks and Recreation Director, Patty Boland, Assistant City Attorney, and Mr. Roger Smith, who is with, actually the president of the Salt River Materials Group, here today to join us on this presentation before you. And we're excited about this project. This is a partnership that we're bringing before you to do an IGA with an intergovernmental agreement with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community for a segment of the Rio Salado Oeste project. And so this is something that staff has been working with Salt River Materials Group for some time. And we're talking about staff actually from several departments. The Parks Department, certainly. The Street Transportation Department has been involved, Office of Environmental Programs, and others in working with the Salt River Materials Group on this proposal and bringing before you what's here today. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Inger Erickson, who will give you some background on the Rio Salado Oeste and details of the proposal.
Thank you, Mario. As Mario mentioned, we were approached in 2016 by the Salt River Materials Group to enter into an IGA for them to be able to help mitigate a flood situation through their property. And I'll show you that in just a second. Just some background history. This is in the Salt River. The Rio Oeste location is between 19th Avenue and 83rd Avenue, and it's approximately 159 acres. What we're talking about today, currently the piece that is outlined in red, that is Bureau of Land Management property that we have a 25-year lease on for recreational purposes. SRMG would like us to work with them to rechannelize the current flow of the water for them to be able to develop property that is in the blue area there. This would be kind of where the new channel would go. It would take two channels and put them into one. Again, we would work with SRMG to design the channel. They would also have to work with us through BLM and the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the Maricopa County Flood Control District to get permits. They would construct and maintain this new area. And what this would do for us is they would do a trapezoidal channel is basically what they would do. But what this would do for us, we currently don't have any funding available for the improvements that we were hoping to do to move this project along. But it would benefit us in the sense that it would create that one piece of the Rio Salado Oeste. SRMG would maintain this area until the full project developed. Like I said, currently we don't have any funding for that at this time. So the next steps really would be to enter into an IGA with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community and then work through the various agencies to make sure that this project could move forward. So it's our recommendation, and I would like to let President Smith speak, but it is the staff's recommendation that we move this forward to the full council to enter into an IGA with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Roger Smith. I'm the president and CEO of Salt River Materials Group. Our ownership is the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community. The community acquired this land in 1986, or 87 rather, and it's about funding or with the economic beneficial use to the community in terms of the sand and gravel operations that we have there. We want to maintain that area. As you know, the South Mountain 202 runs right to the east side of our property. We've already lost 40 acres through this process, and that's where we want to maintain what we have and make sure that we're in business for years to come. We also want to thank you as the council members to move this process along. I know President Ray, Delbert Ray, who's the president of the community, certainly is excited about this venture and wants to maintain that we're in complete collaboration with the city and the other agencies that might be involved. So again, thank you very much. Thank you.
I just want to thank you. I actually represent that district, and I know all the hard work and the cooperation with the community and helping out, especially the Levine area. So just want to thank you, and if you can pass the thanks to the rest of the members of the reservation for everything you do for us. With that, is there a motion?
A motion to approve.
Is there a second?
And Mayor, or I'm sorry,
All
Chairman.
right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say
Mr. Chairman. Chairman.
aye. Oh,
Chairman?
hold on for a second.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Sal.
Yeah, sorry about that. I want to apologize to everybody for not being there today. I wanted to be there. I'm dealing with a parent issue, and those that have elderly parents understand what I'm saying. It's just one of those things. But I do want to thank the Salt River community. They've been an incredible partner on multiple levels. A lot of people forget, back in the 90s, we worked with the Salt River Indian community. At least this is one of the things I worked on, with a recharge basin off of Gilbert Road. We've done extensive work with the Salt River Indian community. And I forgot the gentleman's name that's here. Could you please tell me his name again? From the Salt River Indian community?
Roger Smith.
Oh, Mr. Smith. Could you, President Ray does an excellent job. We've got a phenomenal working relationship. Could you please make sure to express my sincere thanks for all that he's done to work with us?
Councilman, thank you very much for the words, the kind words. I want to make sure that he understands, and obviously he's the chairman of our board, so I'll see.
No,
him,
yeah, I figured.
I'll see him later today. Thank you.
Yeah, let him know. I mean, he and I in particular have a great relationship, and it goes back into the 1990s. He's an amazing individual and been a great leader for your community.
All right, any other questions? With that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We'll pass the meeting back on to the vice mayor.
Congratulations. We are on item 12. Item 12 is golf course revenue and cost savings opportunities. Did somebody, who's still on the line?
Daniel Valenzuela.
Councilman DeCiccio, are you on the line? Yeah, thank you.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, today I am here with Patty Boland, the Parks and Recreation Department lawyer, Tim Merritt, who is the deputy over the golf operations, and David Hockett, who is the head golf pro for the City of Phoenix golf program. At the council meeting on July 6th, you requested research and options on how the city could further reduce a deficit or turn a profit on the golf program. Staff spent the summer compiling information and looking at options, and that's what we're going to present for you today. As a review of history, in September 2013, the City Council approved an agreement with Touchstone Golf LLC to provide financial consulting services for the city's golf operations. A 5-year business and capital improvement plan was the result of the study, and to date, many of the recommendations have been achieved. The report identifies some efficiencies and strategies that would increase golf revenue. You do have a copy of the Touchstone recommendations and the status of those recommendations in Attachment A of the report. One of the significant items that has not been implemented was the raising of fees related to the Phoenix Golf card. We'll talk about those options later as the slides go on. Food and beverage has remained a challenge for us. We entered into agreement with a contractor in 2015. They were not successful, so we're currently working on an RFP for a new food and beverage operator for the 3 golf courses, Aguila, Encanto, and Cave Creek. As you can see by this slide, since the studies has occurred, staff has continually worked hard to reduce the subsidy from the general fund. Last year we were within $3,000, but because of the failure of the food and beverage operator, we had to write off $68,000, which put the loss at $71,000 for the year. Attachment B in the report packet contains the total financial information of all the golf courses. As we've discussed before, when you compare the subsidy to other recreational opportunities in the City of Phoenix portfolio, Phoenix Golf does really well. They recover 98.8% of their expenditures, and they annually have 300,000 participants. When you compare it to aquatics or sports, you know, the revenue recovery is significantly less. Again, we have 4 courses that the city owns and operates, and there's 2 courses that are leased to ASU and GCU respectively. Capital needs was another item that was identified by Touchstone, the Touchstone report. They had $11.8 million worth of improvements that they recommended. To date, we've been able to do $600,000 of improvements. Those include new pumps at Aguila and Cave Creek, as well as improved driving range nets at both Palo Verde and Encanto. And then Palo Verde also had a fence around the property that was in really bad shape, and we were able to repair that as well to make the neighborhood look better. Attachment D has some specifics about those capital needs that have been identified. So a couple of cost-saving measures that we identified throughout the summer. One is outsourcing scorecards, T-signs, and ball washers to a marketing company. By doing this, and even the pencils, by doing this, we would not have the expenditure on our books, but we would outsource it to somebody else. They would be able to sell marketing opportunities to other people, and we know that we could probably get about $10,000, possibly more, depending on the marketing share that we might be able to recover there. But $10,000, we could do that. We do have an RFQ currently in process, and we should be able to move forward on that by the end of the year. Additionally, if we were to reduce the operations hours of each of the courses by 15 minutes on the front end and 45 minutes on the back end, this means we just would set stable times. Right now they fluctuate with the seasons, but if we were to have a set stable time, we could save about $44,000 by doing that. Additionally, $20,000 more could be achieved if we were closed on Mondays, and we currently do this at Encanto 9 and Palo Verde. And so that traditionally is the lowest used day of the week. If we did those 2 things, or a portion of those, we could get up to $74,000 worth of savings. Some revenue-related opportunities. As I mentioned, I was going to talk about the golf card. If we change the process that we do with the golf card now. It is important to note that back in 2008, City Council did approve a fee model for Phoenix golf courses. It outlined a maximum fee of $35 for residents. Residents are defined as county residents, Maricopa County residents, and $55 for the non-resident card holders. These rates would allow staff to just according to course demographics or the season or even the current market conditions. Sometimes the market goes up and down. But a critical piece to this is that there was the ability to use the Consumer Price Index over time. To date, we have not implemented the Consumer Price Index, and our current rates are still underneath the maximum allowed fees as approved by the City Council. So how the golf card relates to this is currently we charge $50 for residents, and when they renew, it goes down to $30. The rates for non-resident, again, which is anybody outside of Maricopa County, is $100, and that includes a complimentary round of golf. Every year we give away about 11,000 rounds of golf through this program. By changing the fee to $50 for residents without the $30 renewal and $100 for non-residents without giving complimentary golf, we could see an additional $75,000 worth of revenue. This would also remove the loyalty point program where free rounds are attained by accumulating a certain amount of points. Currently, on the second piece of this, the golf fees, we currently discount between the hours of 11 and 1 p.m. every day. If we eliminated that discount rate, we project that we could increase by $200,000 the revenue. Now, there would be still the discounted rate that is later in the day. Depending on the time of the season, it's either 2 or 3 o'clock as the day goes on. And we usually call that a twilight special. Additional options for use of golf courses. If we opened up the golf course to make it just green space, The benefit there is people have a space to go. The negative to that is that you have no revenue coming in and you have all the expenditures. And so on a 40-acre parcel of land, it would be about $800,000 to maintain that, which would put us going the wrong direction for the budget. The other option you see up there in Tempe, Tempe has implemented a farm/farmers market cafe juice bar on a 72-acre parcel that was called Rio Salado Golf Course. This particular property, while again it took the amount of maintaining off of the books of Tempe, their revenue that they get is between $15,000 and $24,000, so it's not a lot of added revenue. The benefit, however, is the reduction of the expenditure of the maintenance. Golf course sponsorship, we could put requests for proposals out for or seek opportunities for people to sponsor, much like stadium naming rights. We have not seen this be successful anywhere else, but that is something we could pursue. Outsource management of all golf courses. So right now the maintenance is outsourced, but we have the pro shops, and we're trying to outsource the food and beverage, as I had mentioned earlier. If we did this is something that the city of Tucson has done. They have been able to bring in a profit of $195,000 in their most successful year, but it doesn't address the deferred capital needs, and it also they also carry debt for their particular golf courses, which we currently do not have. In 2011, the city of Tempe outsourced their golf shop and their food and beverage, but they do the maintenance. This has not proved to be stable revenue stream for them, but that's an option as well. Some legal restrictions. As we talk about ideas for other uses of the golf course properties, it's important to be mindful of the legal restrictions. And you see a summary up there, whether it's historic designation or there's people who've donated land or federal government. There's a variety of different restrictions. If we did choose to do something different with the golf courses, we would need to explore the Parks and Recreation policy that's related to the sale of parkland. That would also be in play. And again, the full description of legal restrictions are in your packet. That completes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
I don't have any cards on these items, do I? No? Okay. Are there any questions at this moment? Alrighty.
I got one.
Okay, go ahead.
So back in May of 2017, Aguila was losing about 38. Sounds really high. 38,415, and now it's at a loss of 29. So it's decreasing, right? And then, go ahead.
Vice Mayor Pastor and Councilman Nowakowski. So in May, we probably didn't have the final numbers, and so the final numbers came in July.
And in our Cave Creek, we were losing 39,000, and now we're in a profit about $6,500.
Yes.
And then we're looking at Palo Verde. In May we were losing 211,000, and now we're to about 212,000. Can you tell me what the turnaround was at Cave Creek from a negative 39,000 to a positive $6,500?
So I'd like to have David Hockett, our golf professional, answer that particular question.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilwoman Nowakowski. Basically what we've tried to do in the Touchstone report done that is to, zero budget balance. So don't spend money if you don't have to, run it more like a business. So it's just monitoring expenses and revenues to try to make up the difference.
So looking at Cave Creek compared to Aguila and Palo Verde, do we use the same practices there?
Yes. Again, you'll be looking at in terms of, golfers, who's coming out. You're going to have some fluctuations there that, it just depends on who's playing, when they're playing, things like that.
So we looked at Aguila, it dropped from 38 to 29, so there was a close to $10,000 drop or a profit there.
Correct.
Can you actually get it down if we reduce the hours like we we took Mondays off, and would it be at zero budget, or what's your personal opinion?
That entire expense that we said saving, it's not gonna be all at one facility, but again, if we have less expenses and then we do a good job of generating more revenue, yes, I believe we can get that down to zero.
And what do you think about Palo Verde? We have about 212,000.
That's a tough one because of the overall budget to maintain that facility. The average dollar per round to break even is gonna be roughly $24 and change, and our highest fee for a green fee is $15.
And Vice Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, if I could on that, it's also a 9-hole course, which every other course has 18 holes, so it's much harder to get a higher revenue there.
So how many 9-hole courses do we have in the city of Phoenix? Is that what
Just
we're-
one standalone. So Palo Verde is its standalone owned facility. Encanto obviously has a 9-hole course, but it's kind of encompassed within the Encanto facility. So the maintenance costs are shared. We also have the par 3 9-hole at Aguila, but that is just one facility as well. So Palo Verde is a standalone with its own buildings and its own budget.
So what can we do with Palo Verde to bring it up to zero budget?
Vice Mayor Pastor and Councilman Nowakowski, you know, you would have to raise the rates to a level that people may not want to play. And so if that's the only course of action, and you raise the rates, and again, they would be underneath the threshold, you still would have an issue with that course because you wouldn't have people wanting to play that particular course.
So your recommendation would be how to get down to zero? Is there?
Well, I don't know. Again, I think we look at the golf courses as a totality, much like we look at the swimming pools
Right.
and the sports complexes as a totality. And so, as a totality, we did really well this year with the golf courses. You know, it was a very close situation with the revenue to expenditures. You know, again, that I would need you maybe to give me some thoughts on that if there's something we could pursue. But at this point, you know, it does serve that community, and it is a green open space that is valued by that community.
Our Papago and Maryville is doing great. We outsourced it to 2 universities. Is there any chance to outsource Palo Verde to help us with
We
that?
certainly could take that as an option as well. We could look at possibly some other universities that might want that, or maybe there's an existing university that has one of our other courses that might consider that as well.
And out of all of the golf courses that we own, is there any of them that we can actually sell or actually trade for other properties for parks?
So I have a legal person here that could help answer that question. Patty Boland, our attorney for Parks and Recreation.
Yes. Sorry. Vice Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski. The one course that has a legal restriction that can be removed by the recordation of a document is Palo Verde, because it was restricted as long as there was debt owing on it, but the debt has been paid off on Palo Verde. Cave Creek is on a landfill, so there are environmental concerns with respect to Cave Creek. That's 3/4 of Cave Creek. The balance of Cave Creek was donated by John F. Long for purposes of golf, so there's a deed restriction. Likewise, there's a deed restriction on Aguila because we got that from the federal government under public purposes. And Encanto has a historic overlay, east of 15th Avenue, but not west of 15th Avenue.
From this, go ahead.
Which the historic neighborhoods would not allow that to happen, to be sold. I'm just saying, due to the fact of the historic designation, there's also a deed. We've gone down that road before, and I mean, we can enter it again if we like, but I think we know what's going to
And Vice
happen.
Mayor Pastor and Councilman Nowakowski and members of the subcommittee, any of these if we were going to go that direction on any of these, because they're park property, would have to go through the public process, the 5-step that we've got it reduced down to, public process to get input if that's the direction that the community would want to see the park go.
Now, out of this report, I mean, we hired some consultants to come in and look at the finances of each of our parks, each of our golf courses. Was there recommendations as a whole, or was there actually recommendations per golf course also?
Vice Mayor Pastor and Councilman Nowakowski, there were recommendations on the capital improvement needs for sure, specifically by golf course. However, they looked at it as a total package because when we presented it, it was a total package of how do we get the golf program to a break even or a profitable state.
But what I'd like to see is some type of plan for Aguila and also for Palo Verde to break even. I'm not sure if the consultants designed something or actually came up with some advice for us besides looking at it as a whole. If you can actually
We'll
bring
look at
that back to me later
Yeah,
on.
absolutely.
Those are all the questions I have. Thanks.
One of the, because I don't have the breakdown of this, and I know we discussed in, I want to say May, all the breakdown, but I want to understand where we are, I guess, in the breakdown. So, right here in 2016, 2070, this is a pre-audit. It's saying 71,000 that we will have to take out of the general fund. Or where are we taking this money out of?
So Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, there was an allocation of $450,000. We only used $71,000 of it.
Now, when we talk about cost-saving measures, we're talking about reducing facility hours of operation. What are the facility hours of operation with a private golf course?
David Hockett, if you could.
We compete against private golf courses.
Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, the rest of the committee, they would be actually shorter than what we are proposing. So a lot of times the private courses in the summertime, their first tee time would be 6 to 7, depending on the facility, where we would be starting at 5:30 for a few months, and then it would go closer to 6 in September because of daylight hours. But we would still be starting earlier than them. It just takes us off of the non-set times to where it's just always constantly fluctuating, so we have a better chance to staff accordingly, and it's more of a set schedule versus a fluctuating almost every week.
And by reducing the hours, how does that save money? Other than people not getting on the golf course, I guess what I'm hearing, it's saving money in people power.
Vice Mayor
manpower.
Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, and the rest of the subcommittee, that's correct. You wouldn't have the wages paid out to the staff because they do fluctuate depending on when the sun rises. And so you could have a set time, and you could have set hours.
Okay. And the golf fees, what are you thinking about the golf fees? What are the golf fees currently?
Vice Mayor Pastor, in terms of based off of the closing or what we were proposing?
I have no clue. I'm just
Okay.
reading golf. I'm reading golf fees, and I'm assuming when you say golf fees, are you asking for an increase, or what are you
So
asking?
Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, and members of the subcommittee, basically the golf fees are the reduction of the twilight. We have a twilight and then a super twilight discount time. We would just eliminate the twilight. We would continue to have the super twilight discount. So it's really the timing because it's reduced by a significant amount. If you kept the fee at the rate that it is earlier in the day and just push that back to the 2 or 3 o'clock time, depending on the season, you would be able to raise additional revenue. It's not a discounted time.
Yes, and I get that. So I guess where I want to understand is, because it's a discounted time, are people coming because it's a discounted time, or are they just coming, they get a discount, but they'll continue to golf during that time? I think that's one of the things that needs to be looked at, because if they're coming and we're generating some revenue, or we're getting revenue in during the twilight time, and we then get rid of it, and they showed up for that discount, then we're not generating any revenue. So I think that's the push-pull we're having right now in this process.
And Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, and the member subcommittee, it really is, these are some options to consider. We haven't implemented any of these, and we just wanted to give you options to consider that we would go back and do further investigation on.
I just want to piggyback off what the Vice Mayor is saying. Is there a breakdown of hours? I think that would help us out a lot, seeing that if the majority of the players are actually playing from 5:30, or they start at 8 o'clock, or after the twilight hours, or whatever, do we have a large walk-up? If we're only catering to a dozen individuals, then should we be cutting those hours? So I think that's some information, data that I would like to see also, so
We'll gather
we can
that.
answer those questions that
And
the Vice Mayor is raising.
I think what we need is an analysis of all of this to be able to make, if anything, any type of decision for the future. But until we have the analysis and we have the numbers and we're able to discuss what the data is, I don't think we can make any decisions. Not that we're making any decisions, but the conversation is now in front of us. The other piece is the Phoenix golf cart revision. Is that an incentive-based type of card, in the sense of we have this card and we're incentivizing it because we want them to stay within our city parks, and the way we hook them in is by you get so many points. It's kind of like me shopping at a grocery store, and I stay loyal because I get so many points, because then I get gas. Is that what the golf cart?
David,
I think that is, because I purchased them for Christmas for gifts. So
Yes, Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, and the rest of the committee. The Phoenix card is generated more as a loyalty card to get people to play more often. The reason we bring this to you is obviously within the card program and the complimentary rounds that are giving out for it, we actually lose money on it, to where we only generate $19 a round from the fees generated and the free rounds, and it takes 27 to 29 per round to break even.
got it.
So that's
So
why,
that's where we're losing
yeah,
money.
so we'll lose
Okay.
money on that one because of the pricing that's involved with it.
So I guess what I would say is I would still want to have some type of incentive for someone to come and be loyal to our parks. I don't know what that incentive looks like. I don't know if it's like you reached 100 points, you can get a free beverage, or I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what. That's something that I'm going to push back to staff to start looking at what is cost effective, and what could we incentivize, or how do we incentivize? Maybe it's more of a loyal golfer, because I know you have those loyal golfers on Encanto. I see them every morning, and it's more of take a picture. Let's highlight you at the city council meeting. I don't know what it is, but something that is very cost effective, but yet can incentivize it. So those are just some ideas.
thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Vice Mayor, I have a couple of comments.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first, for Inger and your team, thank you for taking a look at this and being so diligent in continuing to try to find some options, and giving us an opportunity to take the steps necessary to make this amenity, the golf program, something that will continue in Phoenix. I think the question we have to ask ourselves would be, are we in the golf business to make money, or are we in the golf business? Well, I mean, are we in the golf business or not, I guess? Are we in the golf business to make money, or are we offering golf as an amenity to the people of Phoenix in the most cost-effective way, much like we do swimming pools, parks, dog parks, basketball courts, and the list goes on and on. Tennis courts, and you get my point. I don't think we're in the tennis business. We're certainly not in the swimming pool business. We're not in the basketball court business. We're not charging fees. I don't think we should charge fees to try to make money. Obviously, some of these things like swimming, there is a fee that helps to offset the cost. But I don't think we're spending enough time in realizing that we're doing quite well in general when it comes to this golf program. I think the thing that was just brushed over well, it wasn't brushed over, but our staff mentioned it. I don't think anyone reiterated it or, paused to just consider how well we're doing. But 300,000 golfers, 300,000 individuals golfed in our courses in fiscal year 16-17. And the program recovered 98.8% of its expenses. 98.8%, which is a full percentage point better than the previous year. So yes, we are not breaking even, but this is a pretty great option and amenity to put into our neighborhood so that people can have a chance to learn to golf or simply play golf at a very affordable rate. We have to continue looking at these options. I totally agree. I for one, would advocate to keeping a course like Aguila open on Mondays. I, for one, would like to see Palo Verde become, more viable. Of course, if we do that, then I guess we would be doing better than breaking even or coming close to it. And those funds can go into, more repairs on courses and so on. That should be the goal. I don't know about, selling green space as an option here, or getting rid of our green space. We're the 5th largest city in the country. 1.6 million people live in this city. We continue to grow. We have to take care of our green space. Now, the real question here is, as we go through this exercise, and we have to continue to, again, stay diligent in keeping golf as a viable option for the people of Phoenix. Are we trying to recoup 100% to offer this activity for a nominal fee? I'm talking about the activity in general, all of our golf courses. Is it necessary? And I think this is a question for all of our policymakers. Do we have to get to a point where we are recovering 100% in order for this to be an option? Because that's not the case in any of the other amenities or options that I described. Now, Palo Verde right now is doing the least in terms of recovery. We do have a couple of other courses that have not broken even. I guess the question is, what's the magic number? Because, times are going to get better and times it's an ebb and flow. So what's the number? Once a course loses an X amount of funds, should we then consider closing down the course, selling green space, whatever the case might be? I disagree with that. But if, for the sake of discussion, if that is what we're talking about here, then what's the magic number? Is it $10,000? Is it 20? Is it 30? If a course loses 30 or more, should we talk about closing down the course? I don't think we should get rid of our green space that easily. Not to say that there's an obvious focus that we need to put on Palo Verde, because we have to do that in order to continue to make this viable. But, you know, I think we're certainly moving in the right direction here. And I want to thank staff. I want to thank Inger, you and your entire team, our consultants, for helping us get this far. I just want to ask one quick question as well. You know, I was involved in helping with the partnership between Grand Canyon University and the Maryville Golf Course, which now is doing very, very well. And I know that we have a similar type of partnership with Palo Verde on the other, you know, side of town there, on the other side of Phoenix.
Papago? Papago?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, Papago. Right. Thanks, Vice Mayor. So, how do our numbers compare today from you know, prior to those partnerships? How are we doing? Do you have an analysis before you there, Inger?
So, Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Valenzuela, I do know that both golf courses are doing really well as far as rounds. I do know that ASU's golf course over at Papago actually turned a profit this year, and then Maryvale's golf course is still working through paying off the capital improvements that they put in. They put in $10 million worth of capital improvements. So they haven't seen a profit yet because they're still paying those off. But they have done well, and the benefit to us is there is no expenditure on the city of Phoenix because they were removed from our role.
Right, exactly. So GCU hasn't seen a profit, but we are no longer subsidizing that course.
That's correct.
And it's still existing. In fact, it's arguably the nicest city course we have in the country, frankly, you know, frankly the state. And that's a win-win for the city and, of course, the university, and most importantly for the taxpayer. So, yeah, the focus definitely should be on Palo Verde right now. Given all of the success that we've had as we have been moving through this issue, it's way too early to throw in the towel there. I think we have to continue moving this forward, looking for options, trying to make Palo Verde more viable. I do appreciate, frankly, because I drive through this neighborhood very often where Palo Verde is. I appreciate some of the repairs that have been made between the fence and the net. I mean, those are the things that make it more inviting for golfers and, frankly, for people who live in the neighborhood. That's a great start. We just have to continue to find opportunities to market it and bring people in. And if we can't come up with some sort of a public-private partnership, I think that's the way to go. But again, thank you for the report, and I just wanted to share those comments. Thanks.
So I think they were good comments. I don't think it's just Palo Verde. I think it's Aguila. I think it's all the golf courses, and having a conversation regarding our golf courses. And I think it's really more a philosophical conversation of having access, the people having access to our golf courses that would never have access if they were all private. I think that's one of it's about equity at this moment, and equity in our neighborhoods. The second item is we have to have a global conversation with our community, and our community understanding our investment in our golf courses and what it offers, and how I want to call it a sport, because what it does for some communities within our neighborhoods, and what it's an outlet to release whatever is going on, or it's be able to focus, even because the golf is about focusing and measuring. But I think that's what we have to have a global conversation with the community as for the future, in the sense of all our parks, or really parks, because golf courses are part of our parks, you know. So, but Palo Verde is standing alone. But I still consider it an open space and in a neighborhood that's really built up around that area. So, go ahead.
Just like our airport, our convention center, the golf courses are an enterprise fund, right?
Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, they were an enterprise fund, but they're currently in the general fund. They were moved over several years ago as part of the process.
Now, that was part of the process when they were taking, where the general fund lended some money for the deficit.
It was done at that time, yes.
So I think that's where the conversation of trying to fix the problem is that now it's actually coming out of our general funds, and we're trying to figure out how to make it back into an enterprise where it's actually creating funds and growing itself, just like our convention center or airport. And I think that's why the council and this committee is so concerned about making sure there is a profit and looking for those great partnerships like we did first with ASU and then with Grand Canyon. So hopefully in the future we can do something like that, maybe with Aguila or even Palo Verde, so we can start to return some of that fund back into the general fund. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are on item 13.
I'm going to excuse myself.
And Nowakowski has a conflict on this item, and we do not have a quorum. So we can, Sal's off. Councilman Valenzuela, are you on the phone? No.
I am.
Oh, he is.
I'm just conflict on one thing on the antennas.
Oh. Which item are you? So if somebody can make a motion to pull out the item rents on the park agenda, that would be great. I will pull out item on agenda 13, the rents. I need to just pull it, right? I don't need a second, right?
You need a motion for that? Okay.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We pulled that item out. Now it's item 13.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, at your request, there's a new agenda item that we're going to have each month, and this is just to review what's going on to the September Parks Board agenda. I would like to note that Sarah Porter, our Parks Board Chair, is in the audience today, and want to thank her for being here. The first couple of items are informational only. There's marketing and communication updates that we do every month to the Parks Board. This particular month, we're talking about Code Phoenix and our efforts to increase coding opportunities that are free and accessible to all youth, not only in the Parks and Recreation Department community centers, but also through the libraries. The second informational item is the Lost Lake Festival. It's an update on the status of that activity that's going to be occurring in Steel Indian School Park at the end of October. The Gardener Apprenticeship Program that we're working with the union on, that we are going to have starting in January. The first part of the program will have 2 apprentice opportunities for people to compete for. And then the Parks Preserve Initiative repayment update, that's something that we're going to put on there each month to make sure that we update the Parks Board on what the status is based on any movement in that subject. For information and discussion, there's the IGA that we talked about today with the Rio Salado Oeste project, and then the USS Phoenix update. You may recall that there's a memorial that's going to go into Steel Indian School Park. The commission has brought that forward to us, and they're ready to move forward on the fundraising efforts. They wanted to show us the update of where that was. for approval is the board minute meetings for August. And then on consent, Camp Collie, as you may recall, last year we lost our operator, and so this would be a RFQ process to get a new operator for Camp Collie. And then policy items, we actually removed the Pueblo Grande repository fee this came in before the final Parks Board agenda was set. Peace Poll, there's the Aguila Leadership Group wants to donate a peace pole at Harmon Park, and so that's what that subject is about. The Urban Working Farm contract, there's a group of people that would like to go forward and put a working farm into Los Olivos Park, and so we're working through that. And then request to vend, that's just the opportunity for activities and events to get approval to vend, because that's part of the ordinance, and Parks Board has to approve that. So those are the items that are on the agenda for this month, which the meeting is tomorrow.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
3PI repayment update. Do we have, I don't think I have seen.
All it is that the city council had approved that parkland sales revenue would go back to pay off 3PI. And so it's just an information, and then also that we did not get a successful bidder on the property at Rose Mofford.
Okay, and then on that of the Rose Mofford, how do we, for all our other park lands, and I don't know why we didn't think about this, is very similar to what other departments are doing, are trying to get people on a vendors list in order for us to be able then to shift from us internally of our department, our realty department, is that what we call it? Real estate department, and be able then to shift quickly and have a vendor list to have brokers. I think that's where the frustration is with the community on regarding selling our park land.
Vice Mayor Pastor, members of the subcommittee, that is the intent, that any future land would just go through that process. The RFP process did not work for us. We still will have to go through, on any additional land, we still will have to go through the public vetting process that we had already done for the Rose Mofford process. So there is a little bit longer public process than maybe a different piece of property.
So
Well, Vice Mayor and members of the council, the item that's coming forward in October is to actually, there is a request for a vendors list so that as we have properties come available, we have a list to work off of. So that will reduce the time.
And my understanding is there's other properties, other park properties, I guess, that are ready to go that we voted on? Or is this the only one that,
So,
from my memory?
Vice Mayor Pastor, Councilman Nowakowski, and Councilman Valenzuela, the properties that we had 2 properties that had gone through the entire process with the Parks Board. One was by Cuban Park, the other one was Rose Mofford. The Cuban Park proposal is due back at the end of this month, and so we're hoping to have a successful bidder there. If we don't, it'll go back out as a brokerage opportunity as well.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Now, the Rose Mofford, isn't it a sports complex also where people use for softball, baseball?
So Rose Mofford does have soccer fields, softball fields, and fast pitch softball fields. And the parcel that we're talking about is closer to the Peoria side, which has been undeveloped for many, many years. But it's contiguous to the existing sports complex, yes.
So it won't affect any of those sports?
No. In fact, what we were hoping is that it would, we would share parking for overflow in parking situations.
And then one more question. The peace poll,
Yes.
will Aguila then, will Aguila maintain the pole?
Yes.
Okay.
They will install it, they will pay for it, and they will maintain it.
Yeah, through the years. I'm thinking of 30
Yes.
years.
If it needs to be replaced, we would go to them to
yeah.
replace it.
So I didn't know if that was part of the agreement or
Yes.
they were going to donate now and then we maintain it.
No, we would expect them to maintain it as well.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. All right, thank you, Inger. Next item is, I believe, Phoenix Cares.
Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, thank you so much for an opportunity to talk to you about our citywide homeless encampment response. Want to make sure we have, we have our Neighborhood Services Director, Chris Hallett here, Commander Anthony Vasquez from Police Department, and Assistant City Prosecutor Patricia George, who will be all commenting about some of these issues. Before also, even though this 4-member team is up here, the team is much larger than that. All city departments are involved in the response to homelessness all across the city. And we call them in as we need them: streets, public works, parks, libraries, the list goes on. And housing, I will mention, and we'll mention some of those departments as we move through the presentation. Our approach is one that we want to lead with services and we want to follow with housing. Housing is the only real answer, the only solution to homelessness, and our approach is that we want to be comprehensive, multidisciplinary, coordinated, and innovative, of course. Our strategies are partnerships, trying to leverage our community resources, communicating and educating our community. As all of you know, I'm sure, all across the nation, we are having an increase in homeless numbers. If you Google any articles, you will find things all across the country, from New York to LA, from Seattle to Portland, from Anaheim to San Diego. We are no different. We have had a definite increase in unsheltered street homelessness that I'll go over those numbers in just a moment. And of course, in our region, because we are the largest part of our region, the numbers are more in the city of Phoenix than anywhere else. Each year, in the last 10 days of January, all across the nation, HUD conducts, or HUD, with the guidance of HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, all communities do a count on one of those 10 last days of January. These are the numbers for our region over the last 5 years, and you can see over the last 4 years there's definitely been an increase in homelessness. Street homelessness. These secondary numbers here are the number of those that are counted that are in the city of Phoenix. As an example, in 2017, when we counted over 2,000 individuals unsheltered, 1,500 of them were in the city of Phoenix. So on any given year, 72 to 74 to 75% are in the city of Phoenix. Before we move on to...
Can you go back to that slide real fast?
Sure.
Why do you think they're in the city of Phoenix?
Because we're the largest landmass. We have probably more services. We have the homeless campus. There's a variety of reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move into the initiative, though, we do want to thank you, members of this subcommittee, and the rest of the council and mayor for the support that you give to this area. We certainly feel that Phoenix does its part. We all know that we could do more, and we expect everyone to step up and do more. But we do have over $4.2 million annually that we put to homelessness, the city does. The bulk of it is in emergency shelter services. We're one of the funders of the Central Arizona Shelter Services, the largest homeless shelter in the state of Arizona down here, and part of the homeless campus, or the Human Services campus, I'm sorry. We also fund UMOM, a New Day Center for families. We also fund the Hallie Day Center for single women. In addition, we provide dollars to wraparound services and move-in deposits when we are using vouchers in other areas that I'll talk about in just a moment. And then finally, one of the areas over the last couple of years that we have been more engaged in than ever before is doing direct outreach. 2 years ago, the mayor and council approved a $100,000 allocation for specific veteran navigation, which we are utilizing and doing great work in that. And then this last year, the Human Services Department redirected resources to create a homeless outreach and engagement contract that we will talk about in just a moment, and started on July 1st of this year. In addition to the funding, though, we have a housing department that is very creative and very committed to helping us address many of the populations that are specifically impacted by homelessness. We have over 900 veterans vouchers on the street. Recently, the housing department came to mayor and council to get approval to use some of those vouchers in a project setting, which will be very helpful. We have over 300 vouchers for chronically homeless, over 50 for families, and over 30 for youth. So you can see that they are spread across many populations. When we are so grateful for that commitment from our housing department. We are also very involved in leverage and collaborative things as well in the city that I'll explain a little bit more in just a moment, but we are part of the largest rapid rehousing project in the state of Arizona, and maybe one of the largest in the nation. It is also being evaluated. It's $3.5 million. And between that project and our vouchers, we have been able to house over the last 18 plus months, it's now approaching 800 individuals. This is above and beyond any other things that have been going on normally throughout all of the providers. This is happening because of a collaboration, and this is just only one of many that go on, of course. But we do have every single Monday morning, the Valley Sun United Way, the City of Phoenix, the Arizona Department of Housing, Maricopa County, and the Department of Economic Security all meet either in face-to-face or on the phone every Monday morning at 9 o'clock. We have been doing this for coming up on 2 years. And this is just one example out of that collaboration. The United Way came forward to the City of Phoenix and the Maricopa County Industrial Development Authorities, requesting $1 million to put to the Rapid Rehousing Project. They put in $500,000 of philanthropy funds, and with that $2.5 million, we started on a quest to house 250 individuals. As we approach the 250, the Arizona Department of Housing put in another $1 million, seeing the success that we were having, and that's how we got to the $3.5 million. The City of Phoenix, as you provided the vouchers to us, especially in the chronically homeless area, you said, yes, here they are, but you must provide the wraparound services. That's not an easy thing to do, but luckily we have a fantastic partner in Mercy Maricopa Integrated Care, the Regional Behavioral Health Authority. They have brought the Medicare dollars, Medicaid dollars, and the case management that is contracted out via their dollars to wrap around the use of the City of Phoenix vouchers. And between the vouchers and the rapid rehousing, that's how we got to the nearly 800 folks that we have been able to house. So as you can see, clearly our strategy is to lead with services. Our first goal, of course, is to permanently get people off the street. But we are literally being overwhelmed with calls on encampments, et cetera, for homeless things that are affecting our residents and businesses. Those calls come in to your offices. They come into 911. They come into Crime Stop. They come into our departments. And as they come in, it is very hard for us to get a handle on them and coordinate our efforts out. And that is what has brought us to our coordinated city response, which we are calling Community Action Response Engagement Services, Phoenix Cares. Phoenix Cares is one phone number for residents and individuals to call about encampments, et cetera. It is a way for us to streamline and funnel the calls into one place so we can get them into a database so we can know where to send out our services. We can coordinate our efforts better, and we can bring all of the data and the outcomes into one place. I'm going to talk about the outreach engagement piece of that, but before I do that, I'd like to have Chris Hallett give a more comprehensive view of Phoenix Cares before we get into some of the detail.
Yes, good morning. As Mo mentioned, this has been a collaborative we've been working on. What we found is the many partners that we're already working with, Mo cited a few of them, specifically the Streets Department, Human Services, Prosecution Office, Parks, Public Works, Streets, and the library. Wherever the encampments tend to happen is who we end up working together with. And we found out we were all dealing with homelessness at a high level and duplicative. We weren't really as coordinated as we could be. So after figuring out how much time we were each spending, we decided to coordinate and collaborate to provide a more consistent application of our resources to this problem. As Mo said, we'd be leading off with one phone number that would come into the system. that we would be able to triage that and be able to assign it and dispatch it accordingly. Now, we're leading with services, and you're going to hear a little bit more of that. So we send out the engagement team, which has been on board since July. We have 4 different teams of 2 that can cover more hours than what the city staff were doing previous to that. We're having some success that Mo's going to share with you shortly. If they're able to engage them, great. If not, we have a way of providing the action according with whether they're engaged or not. We refer them over to the repeat offender program in the police department, which you'll hear a little bit more about in the next slides. And they're able to deal with them. As I said, the outreach team and the police, they deal with the people aspect of it. Then what's left is that encampment that brought the call in to begin with. And that depends on who owns the property, and that's where neighborhood services, public works, streets, parks, et cetera, come into play, depending on whether it's privately owned property, which our department would work with the property owners to get it cleaned up, or any of the other right-of-way or city-owned property departments that would have that. We work in conjunction with a heavy education campaign with all owners of the property on how to post the property, notice it, work collaboratively in order to prevent the homelessness encampments from coming back. But of course, if they don't come back there, they may be going somewhere else. So it's a continuous effort to educate and provide outreach to all that are touched by homeless, as they all have a role. So our next steps is going out with a series of engagement opportunities. Did the slides move? I think. So I apologize.
That's right. I'd like to talk to you about the outreach and engagement component. As I indicated earlier, the Human Services Department redirected resources to fund this contract. It was a competitive process that was awarded to Community Bridges. They began July 1st of this year, hiring and training staff. As Chris indicated, we have 4 teams of 2. These teams then have the ability to cover at least 1 team available 7 days per week, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. These teams will have transportation. The whole purpose here is direct service connection. So if we are engaged, if the contractor is engaging with you, CBI, and you say you are ready to come into shelter, we will take you to shelter. If you say that you do not, you don't have any kind of ID, we can get you to the Homeless ID Project or some other appropriate provider. If you say you need detox or you're ready to come in because you have a substance abuse issue, we're going to take you directly to that service. We're going to put you in the car, we're going to take you there, and it's going to be not a card handing out, but a person taking another individual to the service. This Community Bridges has a vast access to the behavioral health network that they themselves operate, as well as all the others in the community. These individuals are peer certified. They are trained in escalation, in de-escalation techniques, motivational interviewing, cultural competency. They're in health and safety trained in bloodborne pathogen, CPR, first aid. They are very well trained to do the job that they are doing. So I just wanted to give you, just since 7/1, and not even 7/1 because we were gearing up, but since we have been able to get folks out on the street, we have contacted nearly 350 individuals on the street. We have engaged, meaning they are willing to give us their name, and we're getting engaged with them, approximately 49%, 169. And we have actually enrolled, and enrolled means we are getting them reconnected to a service they're already connected to, or putting them into some kind of a service already, into another service. One of the things about we said the way that we get a handle on the where is through Phoenix Cares and that phone number. The who is through the Homeless Management Information System. So every engagement where the individual will give that information, we're putting them into the HMIS system. First of all, we will know if they've been engaged by any other homeless provider all across the region. If anyone has contacted them or had contacted them, they will already be in there. We'll be able to see that and know what's going on. If not, we will put them into the system, and that's how we will track individuals and their progress as we move forward. So all of these efforts they sound great. They're just one piece of the puzzle, and they're a very important piece, but not everybody wants to be engaged. Not everybody is doing the right thing. We do have individuals that are offending or have issues, and so we do have the repeat offender program. I'd like to turn it over to Commander Vasquez for that portion.
Good morning. So from the police response, we were inconsistent in our response to the issues related to homelessness. So our number one priority is always going to be calls for service, crimes in progress. But when we had encampments and other issues, we saw that we needed better coordination. So the Phoenix Cares program allows us to address two different issues. The first one's going to be the actual encampment itself, going out, finding out if they're on private, public property, getting property owners engaged with us, making sure we have authority to arrest and we can clean those up from the criminal side of it. The Emerald detectives, which we have 10 across the city now, and one supervisor that oversees all of them, they're actually housed out of each one of the precincts. So we want them to have that constant communication with our community action officers and the patrol officers in the precinct. So the second part of the encampments is making sure we have an organized response for the cleanups themselves. So before we sat down and started having these meetings, trying to get certain, we'll call it, trying to get all the services at the same time was very difficult for us. So now it's a streamlined system for us where we can actually do that quickly and promptly. The second part for us is the habitual, yes ma'am.
One question to that, because I'll lose it and then I'll forget what you have
Okay.
said. How do you do that?
Okay, so right now when we get our calls, we have we'll call it a priority response sheet or a spreadsheet that we utilize right now. So we have those and then it gets routed to the right person in the right department for it. So it doesn't fall through the cracks where it did before. That's one of the biggest issues where we need the documentation and the follow-up with it.
So I'm going to push on that one.
Okay.
'Cause,
Well, there's
I
still
want
some.
to know, I want details of the how, I guess I want the details of the process that you go through. Because how do you know it gets to the right department? And how do you know that department has now followed up? And then how do you circle back, since you opened it or was there and then moved it, how do you know to close it? Or who's responsible to close it, I guess is what I'm asking.
So Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, we're currently identifying the single point of contact. We've already been using our department internally as a testing forum, where we've been taking the number of calls that Mo was citing earlier. So we bring it in through one single point of contact. I have been doing that since mid-July, tracking it, and we disperse that accordingly. We triage the call when it first comes in. Most notably, we'll lead with services. It's sent in the system to the outreach team. They update the database that we're having. It's currently just a spreadsheet. It's not we're working on a back-end product that's going to provide better communication back to the complainant, even through the Phoenix at Your Service app that's out there. But that's not completely vetted. But currently, we're doing an internal process where it does bounce from department to department depending on who has it next, all the way through the cleanup stage, and then we close it out. So we have a full documentation of 400 plus properties that we've dealt with since this is rolled out internally in the testing phase.
So at the end of all that process, who is responsible for it?
Vice Mayor, we're all responsible for it. The single point of
I'm
contact.
saying,
Vice Mayor, are you referring to who gets back to the original person that made the complaint? If
correct,
it's
and
a
who does the
cleanup?
follow-up and who does, because the reason why I'm pushing on this is because I've watched this for 6 months, or actually not 6 months. I tested it because I'm a tester to see if things work. I tested it this summer, and I'm still.
Did it work?
No. So that's why I'm pushing, because someone has to take responsibility, even if with all and I believe in all of us collaborating, but at the end of the day, someone has to be responsible for this whole process. And the reason why I'm pushing is because police, because I work with rope so tightly in the community, is that my thing is rope connecting to then this database, because rope has a different type of database that operates, and how then do the outreach person or those engagement people then understand what rope and the outreach engagement is doing, and does this database that is a worksheet solving the problem?
Vice Mayor, if I could, members of the subcommittee. So ROPE, Repeat Offender Program, is a police process, and the way that those cases get to the ROPE detectives is one of two ways generally. One is officers, regular police officers, as they are encountering individuals that are repeating offenders, they have repeat offenses. Those are going to get over to the ROPE detective. As the Homeless Outreach and Engagement team go out, if they see, we will start to see repetitive names, they can be referred also to the ROPE detectives. Those are only on repeat offenders. All of the rest of the process, the Phoenix Cares, is a process of getting out, trying to get people into services, cleaning up the area afterwards, getting back to the individual, and that will be Human Services' responsibility to try to get back to it. However, I will say that while we could close a case, it is very likely, highly likely, it can come back. We will get another call. We will also, through our mapping, see where the high areas are that keep coming back. We will start to use that to know where to go regardless of a call, that it's going to come back if we don't go out there. Given our resources, we will do the best we can to do that, but we will have our hot spots where we will go out, whether we get a call or not, to make sure it hasn't come back. But on any given place, it is definitely possible that it would come back.
And so, Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, if I can clarify, on the Phoenix Care side, the tracking will be done through the Homeless Management Information System. That's where we'll be capturing all of the individuals that we're working with. On the ROPE side, if I understand it correctly, it's through your RMS or your internal system, because they need to build the case with the prosecutor's office so that when they identify that person that has repeat offenses, it then gets sent over to the prosecutor's office to go through the justice system for the enhanced prosecution. So we are working with, just to clarify, two different systems, because technically we're talking about two different types of individuals that we're serving. Those that we just need to get access to services and needs, and those that are repeat offenders that we need to address through the justice system.
And Vice Mayor, if I may just get back to your, as a complainant, the one number that's being called, that's the follow-up number for anybody calling in to check the status on that. So as much as they have separate systems, as do I and all the other departments we're working with, we're consolidating all the information relating to this homeless encampment in the centralized database. So it should be updated by all systems. We're working on an interactive way to do that, but in the meantime, it's done by staff.
Okay, I'm just saying, because to me, a repeat offender program, if an officer is meeting or dealing with or encountering some of the homeless or transient population, and there have been meeting, whatever the touch 1, touch 2, touch 3. You don't know that if the systems are not working and talking together, because an officer could have touched Susie in the morning, and then a CBI could come in the afternoon and now touch Susie, but that information is not in a system where then whoever's touching the CBI who's touching Susie, or the outreach director, then can say, I noticed officer so-and-so touched. There might be something else going on.
We certainly do not have that sophisticated, comprehensive system where RMS is talking to HMIS, which is talking to Neighborhood Services System. We are not there yet with that.
And if I could, Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee, there are many laws of enforcement and HIPAA laws that will cause that to be difficult. However, I would like to say that Phoenix Cares is not it's not enforcement. So if we saw Susie that afternoon, if Susie is committing a crime, we would call PD. But if she is not, we're just going to engage her like any other homeless individual. It's the repeat offenses where it becomes a repeat offender program case, that a case can be built. All along that process, services are offered. So at any point, that individual could say, okay, I've I get it, then it'll come back to us for services. So we are connected in that way.
Yeah. I know that piece, but what I'm trying, it's the tracking of the individual and understanding the individual of what then we're also facing in long term. Because at the end of the day, we're investing money in a long-term problem. And so I am looking at it in a global sense of how do we effectively and efficiently try to influence this long-term problem with very minimal dollars in the long of what we're doing right now. And so I think these are key dialogues that still have to be part of the discussion of the collective, because we're going to think, okay, we have Phoenix Cares, okay, and now the expectation of Phoenix Cares in the community is that it's working, and the frustration that's going to happen in the community is that we're not moving fast enough. And so I just want to be very careful how we roll out Phoenix Cares, because they're going to think that this number is going to solve many things.
And that's what Chris is going to talk to you about
So
right now.
I interrupted you, but
That's right. Do you want me to finish now?
sure. Sorry.
We see the problems with this also, and let me just touch on some of the things that Mo said. It's through the communications and those constant contacts that we have. So when you're talking about, do we have all the information that HSD does? No, we don't have that available, but we have our points of contact that we can get a hold of, and we can get that information the same way that we can share information with them on the criminal offenses involved with that subject. So we do have that we didn't have previously before. The habitual criminal offenders, and I think that the point that you're making is, you're right. I don't want the citizens to believe that this is also for all homeless people, because that is not what it is. We're talking encampment specifically for this.
The message is going to have to be clear on that, because they think this is the one number that's going to move all the different issues happening.
Absolutely. We're going to have to make sure that everybody is crystal clear about that. So there's no doubt about it. So working with the city prosecutor's office, NSD, HSD, gathering up our information, we'll look at the people that are really generating our calls for service, the ones that are out there committing the crimes, that are doing the multiple shopliftings, thefts, that are walking into the roadways, blocking traffic. I know that's a point of contention for people also. Those are the people that we're targeting for these. So we want to look at two things. We're always going to start trying to get people to services first. We all know that some people don't want the services,
right,
and we're going to look at it from a different aspect then. So we need enhanced prosecution for those who will not go to services, but we want to try and use the prosecution as a diversion into services for them also. So it's a two-headed approach for us, where we're trying to still get them, because if it's just a continual cycle of arresting them, we'll be doing it for quite some time. So with the enhanced prosecution, we can get them long-term removed from the street. And the other thing is, for the ones that are hanging out in certain areas, we're also working with the city prosecutor's office to get travel restrictions to make sure they can't come back to those specific locations. I think I mentioned the other things.
Thank you.
So the next steps is to engage with the community. As we said, we've been working collaboratively for some time, even with the community, getting input from them, but we are going to have a series of meetings with the community coming up that we'd like to do at a geographic location, so we can be sensitive and help prioritize their hotspots based on the different geographies throughout the different districts. So where we'll have one collaborative stakeholder meeting that we're going to have, we're going to then have a number of series of meetings in each of the respective communities, and as many as it will take, because this is a continuous education and outreach. And this will evolve as we get feedback. We're getting feedback today. We've been getting feedback for the last couple of months, and we'll continue to get feedback from these community interactions. Each of these will make us better. As I say, we will now have a single point of contact for information. All parties, all collaborators in this are updating this. So a caller can call back to this number to get an update as to what this is. We're going to use this data. It's data collecting, and it's going to be data gathering, and then we're going to be able to report on this and share it. We are working on the different nuances of what data can be shared and when. We're working with our own information technology department on those. We're working on a back-end system that's going to be much more collaborative. But it's going to start with these community meetings because they have a role too. We're going to want to work with the communities. They're going to be the eyes and ears out there. Not all homeless interactions are illegal. We really want to focus on the encampments because that's where our outreach and officers can find them. That's where they're living and sleeping that night. And so we're going to have a higher success for that. We're going to urge everybody about that, as well as if they're seeing a crime, obviously call 911 or Crime Stop. But otherwise, any calls that come through the system, we're going to address it because we're all getting the calls now. So we'll have it in one location. We'll be able to triage and know where it is as a call, and hopefully better our process as a result.
And Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, you did make a very good point that this is just the beginning, and you are absolutely right. We're going to learn a lot from this process. We're going to gather a lot of information, and as we move through our communication, it'll become clear to us, as pointed out by the committee and ourselves, where we need to improve things, including data collection and sharing of information as far as we can take it.
You have a number?
Is the number ready to be released?
Yeah, because I heard that we have a number, so I didn't see it in the documents.
Yes,
Okay, all right.
Vice Mayor, the number's still being identified, programmed, and
Got it.
tested. It's not quite ready for prime time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, appreciate it. Any other questions?
Just a comment, a few comments. I really appreciate it. We all very much appreciate this. We've met with neighborhood leaders, business leaders. You know, I want to thank our team here, our staff who've done the same thing, Deanna, and everyone else who actually has come out and made contact with business leaders, community leaders. There's a real issue out there, and obviously Phoenix is not immune to it. I think it was covered in your documentation. Homelessness has gone up, I believe 27% from 2015 to 16, and an additional 25% the following year in Maricopa County. It's a big county, and Phoenix is not immune to it. Central Phoenix is not immune to it. And it's a national problem. It's not just Maricopa County, it's not just Arizona, it's a national problem. And how do we respond to it? And I think that this is it's a dynamic way to do that. It's working with all of the departments that we have here with the city of Phoenix, and I think that it's a great cross section. I'm not naive to think that there is not a criminal element in the homeless population. I also believe that everyone who is homeless is not a criminal, and it's about working together and trying to figure that out. Again, I can't understate the importance of reaching out to the community, those who live in our neighborhoods, who do business in our neighborhoods, to get their input, which I know you've done and will continue to do. And this is something that we've been talking about for a while now, and we're all looking forward to when that number does go prime time. And there are going to be some kinks along the way, some things that we have to learn from. It's a new program, but just know that it's appreciated, and there might be some growing pains as we get through it, but just know that it's absolutely welcome in the community, and we're all looking forward to it. So thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you. Councilman Nowakowski?
I also want to thank the community. It was really the community that got together and really organized themselves and put pressure on most of us that are sitting up here, and causing us to really put pressure on our staff to come up with a solution. And the solution cares. I mean, it's not just about going out there, but it's actually giving services. And that's one of the biggest problems we see right now, is that the police officers go out there, they arrest the individuals, or they hold them for a while, they release them, but there's no services connected to that. So now what we're going to do is have a process where we actually create a program. And the whole repeat offenders is something that we heard over and over in the community. And basically creating a program for those repeat offenders and offering them to go through some kind of a rehab. And I think that's something that's really crucial. That's something that the community was asking for. And I want to thank you for adding that in there. I know that one of the biggest problems that we have is the city of Phoenix. We're doing our share. But I challenge all the other cities to do their fair share too. It's not right that we as a city of Phoenix, we have about 2,000 homeless that are out there, and we have about 1,500 in the city of Phoenix. We provide about $4.2 million for that to come up with a solution. We have the only homeless campus in the state, and we become the mecca for the homeless individuals, and that's wrong. Because we're being good stewards and we're helping people and we're coming up with solutions. Now we end up having people from Flagstaff to Tucson being bussed in, or they actually, I'm not sure how they're getting here, but they're arriving to our campus here. And it happens to be in my district. One of the other things that we need to fix is when people are released from our federal prisons and our state prisons, they're released at the homeless shelter. That's wrong. They need help. For 5 or 10 years, or how many years they were in prison, they had a square meal, 3 square meals a day. They had structure in their lives, and all of a sudden they're just released to a homeless campus. There's something wrong with that. We need to figure out what we can do with those individuals that are being released from prison and how we can help them through that transition of coming back to a normal, if it's services or so. But that's one of the biggest problems we're seeing and we're hearing out there in the community, especially when it comes to sex offenders. So I'm just really thanking the community that's out there at large that really put the pressure on us for the last 3 years and really advocated for the city to do something. And I really want to thank all those organizations that are actually working hard to come up with solutions. And I know that Jerry Castro from St. Vincent de Paul, he's out there feeding people on a daily basis. And it's individuals like that I believe are little saints here on earth that are helping those individuals that give so much of themselves. So the other thing too is the biggest complaint we hear is good church groups that are out there feeding in our parks and in our neighborhoods and providing services that are being provided at the homeless shelter on the campus. So we need to really make sure that we coordinate all those good efforts and how we can have it as a resource there at the campus that we have already. I mean, we need resources. We need individuals to help out to serve the food that we have at the Andre House at St. Vincent de Paul. But how can we actually coordinate with the individuals that are trying to help out in Margaret Hans Park and other parks throughout the city of Phoenix to really come up with a solution of not bringing the homeless away from the services, but into neighborhoods where they have encounters with the police officers and other services. So I think it's really a group effort, and it's that Team Phoenix approach, working with the community and working with these nonprofits and church groups and bringing them all together and using our resources and creating that CARES as an effective force, not just using city resources, but community and church resources also. So thank you all for everything you're doing. And individuals out there in the community, you need to get involved. It's not just a city of Phoenix problem, it's a community problem. The way we're going to solve it is working together. And the other city elected officials, you need to take your fair share of this situation we find ourselves with homeless. And you need to create homeless campuses within your cities also to really solve this problem and come up with services and relief for all the homeless in our state of Arizona. Thank you.
So I forgot about an item that I had requested to the city manager of providing outreach teams on light rail and to work with the police officers that are assigned to light rail and also work with Valley Metro Transit Authority to work with these outreach and engagement services. I don't know what to call them. So do you guys know anything about that? Or
Yeah, Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, Mario Paniagua is in the audience, and we are coordinating with his team on getting that put together and bringing that forward.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I had to make the request here, but that's one of the requests that I've made to get, yeah.
Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor and Councilman. So with the rope individuals, I just want to make it clear that through my office and the officers, we already do connect to outreach and to services. So it's just a matter of working as we get and expand, finding with light rail working the rest of the program. But we do already provide those services to individuals that need it.
Yeah, I think it's more of being able to go to our hot spots during our times of need and make sure that we have a team there that could coordinate.
And Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, one of the things that we did when we put the competitive bid out for the homeless outreach and engagement is that we made it expandable, made it very clear that in the future, should we have another opportunity to add funds or to some other way increase the services, that we would do so. So they all knew when they bid that this is a contract that we actually intended to add to. So we have that opportunity should we be able to go down that road.
Thank you.
Mo, you talked about hotspots. Can you share those hotspots with us later on?
We do, Vice Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, just off the top of my head right now, we have Central Avenue Bridge where we are going daily. We have Civic Space Park, Enhanced Park, that we're trying to make a square here in the city. That's just one example. We know that in your areas, there are hotspots. One of the things we did when we had the 400 or so calls that we had been using this to create the process, we were able to create heat maps where we could see where the majority of the calls came from, as an example. So we can see the travel throughout the city and be able to decide, okay, that's an area that if we don't go there on some kind of consistent basis, it's going to come back on us.
Thank you. Appreciate all your work. I have decided to continue the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study due to the fact that I would like to give them enough time to present and then for us to be able to have a dialogue. So that item is going to be continued for the October meeting. I have no call to the public and any future agenda items. All right, meeting adjourned.